Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we're doing something a little different.
We are.
Yeah, and frankly, I think it's going to be one of our most fascinating, maybe strange, and definitely most moving discussions yet.
Oh, absolutely.
Because we are taking a singular text today, just one chapter.
The epilogue of the Gospel of John.
Right, exactly. And we are going to just wring every single ounce of meaning out of it.
Yeah.
And let me tell you, the title we've given this deep dive is, well, it's evocative.
It certainly paints a vivid picture, doesn't it?
It really does. We're calling it John 21, Explained Naked and Diving, One Man's Reckless Return to Jesus.
I love that title. It's so accurate. It
Well,
perfectly captures the desperation, the hilarity, and really the profound beauty of the moment.
It really does. Now, before we even dip a toe into the water here, and yes, pun absolutely intended, I have a very specific request for you listening right now.
A mandate, really.
Yes, a mandate. If you haven't read John chapter 21 recently, or, maybe you've never read it, hit pause.
Seriously, hit pause right now.
Go read it. It is not long. It's maybe 20 verses or so. Read it, let it soak in, and then come back and hit play.
Yeah, because we are going to be unpacking details, tiny microscopic details.
From the number of fish to the type of fire they used.
Exactly. And it will all make so much more sense if the story is fresh in your mind. It's the difference between hearing a summary of a movie scene and actually watching it unfold. You need those sensory details.
You really do. And while you're pausing and reading, please make sure to like and subscribe to the show. It really helps us keep these deep dives coming.
But yes, please read the text. Because what we're dealing with today, it isn't just a fishing story.
No.
It's not just a nice little PS attached to the end of the gospel because John had some extra parchment lying around.
Right, because it really feels like an epilogue. And for a long time, critics actually thought it was added by someone else later, right? Because chapter 20 ends so perfectly.
They did think that, yes. But the source material shows us it's actually a vital bridge.
A theological bridge.
Exactly. Think about where we are in the narrative history here. You have the resurrection in chapter 20.
The absolute high point of human history.
The tomb is empty, death is defeated, the climax has happened. But then you have the birth of the church coming later in the book of Acts.
Right.
So John 21 is this messy, beautiful middle ground.
It's the now what?
Precisely. It deals with failure, it deals with shame, and it deals with the incredibly mundane reality of Monday morning after a miracle. It answers that practical question. Okay, Jesus is alive, the tomb is empty, now what do we do with ourselves?
That is the real awkwardness of this chapter, isn't it? The disciples are sort of in limbo.
They are completely in limbo.
They aren't preaching to thousands yet, like they do in Acts 2. They're just waiting.
They're waiting in Galilee. And in that waiting, the source material identifies 3 massive lessons that we're going to explore today.
Okay, lay them out for us.
First, we learn that failure is not final.
That's a big one.
It's huge. We're going to look at Peter, a man literally haunted by his worst moment, his denial of Christ, and see that his past doesn't disqualify his future calling.
Which is such a massive comfort for anyone who feels like they've blown it and they think, well, God can't use me now.
It is the ultimate antidote to shame.
Yeah.
Second, we learn that love is the qualification, meaning the only requirement for ministry isn't talent, it isn't a seminary degree, it isn't some guilt-driven sense of duty.
It's loving the master.
Exactly. And third, we learn about a new story. Following Jesus doesn't lead to a comfortable retirement or a life of ease.
Unfortunately.
Right. It leads to glory, yes, but often through sacrifice and very distinct individual paths.
Okay, so let's set the stage properly. We really need to talk about the context first. Who is telling us this story? Who is John? Because when we just say John, people might immediately think of John the Baptist or just a generic biblical name.
Good point. Let's clarify. The author here is identified as John the Apostle.
The son of Zebedee.
Right, one of the sons of thunder. He's part of that absolute inner circle of Jesus, Peter, James, and John.
These are the guys who got to see things the others didn't.
Like the Transfiguration. But in the text, he refers to himself in a very specific, almost mysterious way. He calls himself the disciple whom Jesus loved.
Okay, now I have to stop you there because I've always found that a bit, I don't know, presumptuous.
It sounds like a brag.
It really does. I'm the favorite. I'm the teacher's pet. Jesus likes me best.
Oh.
Is he just stroking his own ego there?
It definitely sounds that way to our modern ears. We highly value false modesty. But in the context of the first century, scholars really don't see it as arrogance at all.
Really?
No, it wasn't a claim of superiority. It was a title of spiritual intimacy.
Okay, unpack that.
Think about it this way. John is defining his entire existence, not by who he was, a fisherman, a son of thunder, a big-shot apostle, but by who Jesus was to him.
Oh, wow.
He was the recipient of that love. That was his anchor. His identity was completely grounded in grace.
So it's not, I'm the great disciple. It's, I'm the one he loved, and that's literally the only thing that matters about me.
Precisely. And it gave him a very unique perspective. He was an eyewitness to all of this. He was a Palestinian Jew writing much later in his life.
How late are we talking?
Probably from Ephesus between AD 70 and 100.
So he's an old man by now.
An old man looking back on the days when he was young and running foot races to the empty tomb.
So he's looking back on these events with decades of reflection. Who exactly is he writing to? Why write this gospel so late in the game?
He's writing to a mix of Jewish and Gentile believers in the Greco-Roman world. And this is crucial context. He's writing at a time when heresy is really starting to creep into the church.
Which heresy specifically?
Specifically, the rise of Gnosticism.
Okay, we need to define that. Gnosticism. I hear that word thrown around in history documentaries, but what does it actually mean in this context?
Great question. Broadly speaking, Gnosticism was a philosophical movement that believed the physical world is inherently evil and the spiritual world is good.
Spirit good, matter bad.
Exactly. They viewed the human body as a prison for the soul. They actually thought it was a mistake made by a lesser, flawed God.
So being human is basically a trap.
Yes. And when they applied that philosophy to Jesus, it created a massive theological problem.
Because Jesus was a man.
Right. Early Gnostic thought tried to separate the divine Christ spirit from the human man, Jesus. They really struggled with the idea that a holy, perfect God would get his hands dirty with actual flesh and blood.
So how did they explain him?
They thought maybe Jesus was a phantom or a spirit that just looked like a man. Or they claimed that the Christ spirit descended on him at baptism but left him before he died on the cross.
So John is writing to counter all of that.
Heavily. John is writing to prove that Jesus was fully God and fully man. He is the Logos made flesh.
The Word made flesh.
Yes. And that is exactly why details like eating fish in chapter 21 matter so much.
Because ghosts don't eat breakfast.
Precisely. Ghosts don't chew. Ghosts don't light fires. Ghosts don't digest protein.
That makes so much sense.
John is intentionally grounding the theology in physical reality. He's strengthening the faith of a second-generation church that is facing intense persecution. He wants them to know this isn't a fairy tale.
It's not a metaphysical metaphor.
No, it happened in the dirt, on the sand, with real fish and real fire.
That makes the epilogue feel so much more essential. It's an apologetic defense. Okay, so let's quickly recap where we are in the story before chapter 21 actually opens. We've just come off John 19 and 20.
Right. So John 19 is the end of the old. It's the absolute horror of the cross. It's the political machinery of Rome crushing Jesus.
But there's a key theological anchor there.
Yes, the phrase tetelestai.
It is finished.
Exactly, and that's an accounting term. It literally means a debt has been paid in full, the transaction is completely done.
And then chapter 20.
John 20 is the beginning of the new, the empty tomb. Jesus breathes the Spirit on the disciples, which directly echoes Genesis. It is the start of new creation.
Let's unpack that term, new creation. Because I think a lot of people hear the word resurrection and they just immediately think, oh, going to heaven when I die. But the source material says it's different.
It is significantly different, and this is a very common misconception. The new creation concept we see here isn't just about souls floating off to some cloudy afterlife while the earth burns down.
What is it then?
It's about heaven and earth becoming one. It's the restoration and renewal of the physical world. God isn't scrapping his creation, he is redeeming it.
So Jesus' resurrected body is sort of the prototype for that.
It's the first fruits. His body is physical, he can be touched, he has actual wounds, he can eat, but it's glorified. It's no longer subject to death or decay.
He can walk through locked doors, yet he can still digest food.
Right. It's an entirely new kind of matter. It's what the whole universe is groaning and waiting to become. So when we look at John 21 and we see Peter's restoration, we really have to see it through that specific lens.
It's a microcosm of that cosmic renewal.
Exactly. The old, which is Peter's brokenness, his shame, his failure, is meeting the new, which is his restoration and his new commission.
That sets the scene perfectly. We have this really high theology, this cosmic renewal, the intersection of heaven and earth. But then the chapter opens with something that feels, honestly, kind of depressing.
The fruitless toil.
Yeah. It's just so mundane. Peter just announces, I am going fishing. It feels so incredibly anticlimactic. Like, well, the Messiah is alive, death is defeated, but I've still got bills to pay.
And 6 of the others just follow him. We will go with you. It's really interesting, isn't it? They go right back to what they know.
Is that a sin? Are they backsliding here? Because Jesus told them to wait, didn't he?
That is actually a massive debate among scholars.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Some scholars argue they were just hungry and needed money. These guys had essentially been unemployed for weeks while following Jesus around Jerusalem. They had families back home to feed.
That's practical.
Very practical. But others say it was a lack of direction, a spiritual drift back to their old lives because they simply didn't know how to be apostles yet.
They didn't have the how-to manual.
Exactly. But the source material makes clear that the theological point John is driving home isn't really about their motivation. It's about the result.
They catch nothing.
Right? They fish all night, which is the absolute best time for fishing on the Sea of Galilee, and they catch absolutely nothing.
Which feels highly significant.
Yeah.
Because these are pros. They aren't hobbyists out there with a cane pole sitting on a dock.
They are seasoned professionals.
Yeah.
This was their entire livelihood before Jesus called them. They know the currents, they know the sweet spots, they know the weather patterns.
And they still get skunked.
Completely. And that is the point. It vividly illustrates Jesus' words from back in John 15:5. Apart from me, you can do nothing. The darkness of that night symbolizes human effort operating entirely in the flesh. It's the old creation way of doing things. Grinding, working, sweating, relying on your own expertise, your own strength, and coming up totally empty.
It's almost like the failure was completely necessary.
It was essential. Think about the alternative. If they had caught a few fish on their own, just a mediocre catch, what would have happened?
They would have been satisfied.
Right. They would have cooked them up on the boat, patted themselves on the back, and totally missed the miracle. The complete and total failure created the necessary stage for divine intervention.
It created the space for Jesus to step in. If they had caught a few fish, they wouldn't have recognized the miracle as divine.
Exactly. Self-sufficiency is the enemy of reliance on God. And notice the brilliant contrast John sets up here. You have these frustrated, exhausted experts in the boat. And then, as dawn breaks, you have a stranger standing on the shore giving them advice.
Let's talk about that moment, because the imagery of dawn is striking.
The symbolism of time is very rich here. Dawn represents the end of that long night of sorrow and fruitless human labor. It's the arrival of the true light.
And what about the place, the shoreline? Is there significance to that, or is it just geography?
In John's Gospel, geography is always theology. The shore is a liminal space.
A boundary.
Yes, it's the boundary between the chaotic sea and the solid land. In Jewish thought, the sea often represented chaos, death, the abyss, the Gentile nations. It was uncontrollable and dangerous.
And the land.
The solid ground represented the kingdom, safety, the promised land. So Jesus is standing on the solid ground, calling them out of the chaos of the sea.
And he gives them a command. He says, cast the net on the right side of the boat.
Which, logically speaking, makes zero sense.
Right, because the boat is, what, maybe 6 or 7 feet wide? If there are no fish on the left side, are there really going to be fish on the right side?
No. The fish don't know left from right. From a professional fisherman's perspective, this is amateur, insulting advice.
It's like a stranger walking into an operating room and telling a surgeon, hey, try cutting with your other hand.
That's a great analogy, but it's not about fishing strategy at all. It's about obedience. It's a seemingly illogical command that, when obeyed, brings absolute abundance.
And they obey it.
Yeah.
And suddenly they can't even haul the net in.
And that is when the realization hits.
John is the first one to get it, isn't he?
Yes. John, the mystic, the theologian of the group, he sees the pattern. He remembers, because this has happened before.
Back in Luke 5.
Yeah.
At the very beginning of their ministry.
Exactly. The exact same miracle. The same frustration of catching nothing, the same weird command, the same massive overload of fish. John connects the dots and he simply says, it is the Lord.
But Peter's reaction is just, it's so Peter. It is the most chaotic, wonderful thing in the text.
It is the most Peter moment in the entire Bible.
He goes naked and diving. Let's finally talk about the title of our deep dive today.
Okay, so the text says he was stripped for work. Now, we need to clarify this for a modern audience. This doesn't necessarily mean he was fully nude, though he might have been.
Right.
It generally means he was down to his undergarments, his basic tunic, improperly dressed for public company.
Okay, so he hears John say it's the Lord. And what does he do?
He puts on his outer garment.
Which seems entirely backwards if you're about to jump into a lake. It's like putting on a heavy winter coat to go do laps in the pool.
Wow.
You're going to drown. It creates massive drag.
It makes absolutely zero sense physically, but it makes perfect sense spiritually.
How so?
You have to understand the Jewish mindset regarding shame and reverence. You would never appear naked or improperly dressed before a superior, let alone before your king. He clothes himself out of reverence. He wants to meet Jesus with dignity.
But then he immediately jumps into the water.
That's the intimacy part. That's the sheer desperation. He cannot wait for the boat to be rowed in, even though they were only about 100 yards out.
Which is just a football field. They're so close.
But it's too far for Peter. He dives into the sea again, that symbol of chaos and judgment, just to get to Jesus faster.
It really is a reckless return.
It is entirely reckless. And think about the comparison to the last time we saw Peter interacting with Jesus' presence like this.
The courtyard.
Yes! This dive reverses the shame of the high priest's courtyard. He is no longer hiding by a fire, denying he even knows Jesus, just to save his own skin.
He's rushing toward the one he denied.
He's fully exposed in his intent, yet fully clothed in his reverence. It's just a beautiful picture of repentance. He wants to be near Jesus more than he wants to be dry or safe or sensible.
So Peter splashes ashore. He's dripping wet, fully clothed, probably exhausted from swimming with a coat on. The other disciples slowly drag this massive net in, and what do they find waiting for them?
They find breakfast. And this is such a tender, amazing detail. There is a charcoal fire. The Greek word is anthrakia, and we will definitely come back to that word because it's crucial. But there is bread and fish already prepared on the fire.
Wait, so Jesus didn't even need their fish?
No, and that's the sovereignty of God right there. He is the creator serving the created. He provides the meal before they even bring in their miraculous catch.
He didn't need their help.
He didn't need their effort to sustain them.
But then, and this is the part I love, he says to them, "Bring some of the fish you have just caught."
Yes, the source material calls this the mathematics of grace.
I love that phrase.
He doesn't need it, but he invites them to contribute. He dignifies their labor. He invites us to bring the fruit of our obedience and place it on his table.
It's collaborative.
It is. He says, I have provided everything, but I want to enjoy what you have done in my name.
Now we have to talk about the fish themselves. Because the text doesn't just say they caught a lot of fish. It says specifically 153 fish.
Yes, 153 large fish.
Why? I mean, usually fishermen exaggerate. Oh, it was hundreds of fish, or they round up and say about 150. But 153, it's a strangely specific number to record.
It is one of the most debated numbers in all of biblical history. If you go into the historical commentaries, you will find incredibly smart people twisting themselves into theological pretzels trying to figure this out.
Give us the theories. We love the weird theories on this show.
Okay, well, the most straightforward historical explanation is simply that it's an eyewitness detail. Fishermen count their catch.
Because they have to split the profits.
Exactly. It adds immense credibility to the text. It says John was really there. He helped count them one by one. It emphasizes the physical reality of the event. It anchors the story in history, pushing back against that Gnostic idea of a phantom Jesus.
That makes total sense. But you know scholars. They can never leave a specific number alone. They always want a secret code.
Oh, they love a code. So Jerome, the ancient scholar who translated the Vulgate, he pointed to a belief in zoology at the time. This was actually based on the writings of Oppian of Cilicia.
Okay, what did Oppian say?
He claimed that there were exactly 153 species of fish in existence in the known world.
Oh, so if they caught 153 fish.
It symbolizes a universal harvest. The net caught every single kind of fish, every tribe, every nation, every language. The gospel is for everyone. It's a picture of the global Great Commission.
That's actually really cool. What else?
Well, then you have Augustine.
Ah, Augustine.
Augustine loved math. He pointed out that 153 is the sum of the integers from 1 to 17.
Wait, let me think.
If you add 1 plus 2 plus 3 all the way up to 17, you get exactly 153. It's what mathematicians call a triangular number.
Okay, but why 17? That seems entirely arbitrary.
Augustine argued that 10 represents the 10 commandments, so the law, and 7 represents the sevenfold Spirit of God, so grace.
Law plus grace.
Right. 10 plus 7 is 17. Therefore, 153 represents the law being fulfilled by grace, gathering the great multitude of believers.
I mean, that feels like a massive stretch. That sounds like he had the answer of a 153 and worked backward to find a question that fit.
It is very abstract, I'll admit, but
Yeah.
there's a third theory, a more concrete biblical connection to Ezekiel 47.
In the Old Testament.
Yes. There's a prophecy there about a river flowing from the temple down into the Dead Sea, making the salt water fresh and teeming with life. And the text specifically mentions fishermen standing on the shores from En-Gedi to Ani-Glaim.
Okay, I'm listening. Where does the number come in?
In Hebrew gematria, which is the practice where letters have specific numerical values, the value of the name An-Eglaim is exactly 153.
Wow.
It points to the Dead Sea coming to life. It's a prophetic picture of the gospel, livening a dead, salty world.
So whether it's fish species, Augustine's math, or Ezekiel's prophecy, it all ultimately points to the exact same thing: abundance and life.
And universality. Everyone is included. And that actually brings us to the net itself.
Because a net doesn't break.
Right. Think back to Luke 5, the first time they had a miracle catch like this. What happened to the nets?
They were tearing. The boats were literally sinking.
It was chaos. But here in John 21, with this massive haul of 153 large fish, the text goes out of its way to explicitly say, the net was not torn.
What's the theological lesson there?
It's ecclesiology, the doctrine of the church. The net represents the church. And John is telling his readers that the church, empowered by the resurrected Christ, is strong enough to hold the global harvest.
Unity is supernatural.
Yes. The gospel is fully sufficient to hold everyone God calls without structural failure. We might look around today and feel like the church is breaking or fracturing.
Especially today.
But the true net holds. The capacity of God's grace is always greater than the volume of the harvest.
That is a deeply comforting thought, especially in chaotic times. So they eat breakfast, and then the camera sort of zooms in, the other disciples fade into the background, and it's just Jesus and Peter.
The restoration of the rock.
And you mentioned a charcoal fire earlier.
Yeah.
The anthrachia.
Yes. This is one of those literary details that just gives you chills when you catch it. The Greek word anthrachia only appears twice in the entire New Testament.
Once here in John 21.
And once in John 18.18.
A courtyard.
The exact place of the denial. Peter stood by a charcoal fire to warm his hands while he looked a servant girl in the eye and said, I don't know the man.
Oh, man.
Now, Jesus meticulously recreates the scene. He brings Peter back to a charcoal fire. It's sensory memory. You know how a specific smell can instantly transport you back in time?
Oh, absolutely. The smell of that smoke must have taken Peter right back to his absolute worst moment, his greatest failure.
It's surgical.
He really is surgical.
It's not cruel, though. It's healing. Jesus is revisiting the wound to clean it out properly so it doesn't get infected. He takes him back to the scene of the crime. He doesn't just ignore the elephant in the room. He addresses the failure head on.
And then come the three questions Jesus asks. Do you love me? 3 separate times.
To mirror the 3 denials.
No.
One affirmation of love for every single denial.
But there's a nuance in the Greek language here that is just heartbreaking. And if you only read it in English, you completely miss the drama.
You miss the whole dynamic.
This is the agape versus phileo discussion, right? I've heard this preached before, but let's really break it down for everyone.
Yes. Greek has multiple words for love. English just has one, which makes it tough. Agape is the heavy hitter. That is divine, unconditional, self-sacrificial love, the I will die for you kind of love.
The love Peter originally boasted he had.
Exactly. Before the crucifixion, Peter basically said, even if everyone else falls away, I will not, I will die for you. That was a claim of agape.
Okay, and what about phileo?
Phileo is brotherly affection, friendship. It's deep, it's emotional, it's real, but it's not that high, willful, sacrificial agape. It's I really like you versus I will lay down my life for you.
So walk us through the actual dialogue by the fire.
Okay, so the first time, Jesus asks Simon, son of John, do you agape me more than these? He's asking, are you totally devoted to me? Will you die for me? Do you still claim to love me more than the other disciples do?
And how does Peter answer him?
Peter responds, yes, Lord, you know that I phileo you.
Wait, so he actively changes the word.
He changes the word in his response. He downgrades it. He's saying, Lord, I love you like a brother. I have great affection for you.
Why doesn't he just say agape? Why not claim the higher love?
Because he's broken. He's finally humble. He realized 3 days ago that he actually didn't have agape love. He boasted that he did, and he failed miserably. So now he won't claim it. He's being painfully honest.
I love you like a brother, but I know I can't claim that superhero love anymore.
Right. He won't even trust his own assessment of his heart anymore. Notice he appeals to Jesus' omniscience. He says, you know.
That is profound.
Yeah.
He is totally done with the bravado.
Yeah.
So what happens the second time?
Jesus asks again, Simon, do you agape me? Still using the high word. And again, Peter replies, Lord, you know that I phileo you. He stubbornly sticks to his honest lower assessment.
And the third time?
The third time, Jesus changes the word. He comes down to Peter's level. He asks, Simon, do you phileo me?
Wow. He meets him exactly where he is.
He does. He accepts the love Peter is actually able to offer right in that moment. And the text says Peter was grieved.
Why? Just because it was the third time?
Probably. But also perhaps because Jesus questioned even that basic brotherly love, or simply because the sheer repetition drilled all the way down into the pain of the denial.
But the result of all this isn't shame. It's a job offer.
That is the absolute key to this chapter. Restoration in God's kingdom isn't just, I forgive you, now go sit quietly in the corner. It's get back to work.
With every answer Peter gives, Jesus gives a command.
Feed my lambs, tend my sheep, feed my sheep.
Is there a distinction there? Lambs versus sheep? Or is it just poetic variation by John?
Most scholars see a clear progression. Lambs implies the young, the vulnerable, the brand new believers. They need feeding, basic instruction, and care.
And the sheep.
Sheep implies the broader flock, the mature believers. They need tending, and that specific word means shepherding, guidance, protection, oversight. Jesus is entrusting Peter with his absolute most precious possession, his people.
And it sets up a clear hierarchy of duty, doesn't it?
It does. And this is crucial for anyone in leadership or any kind of ministry. Love for Christ must precede service to the flock.
You have to love Jesus before you try to serve his people.
Yes. You cannot effectively feed the sheep if you do not first love the shepherd. If you skip the love part and go straight to the work part, you burn out. Or worse, you become a hireling who just uses the sheep for your own ego or gain.
The motivation for ministry has to be love for Jesus, not love for the ministry itself.
Exactly.
So Peter's back. He's the rock again. He has his commission. But then Jesus drops a very heavy reality check on him. It goes from warm and fuzzy by the fire to very dark very quickly.
He pivots straight from the commission to the ultimate cost of that commission. He says to Peter, truly, truly, I say to you, when you were young, you used to dress yourself and walk wherever you wanted. But when you are old, you will stretch out your hands, and another will dress you and carry you where you do not want to go.
Stretch out your hands. That's a very specific phrase.
It is. In the ancient Roman world, that was a common, well-known euphemism for crucifixion. Jesus is actively prophesying Peter's martyrdom.
He is telling him exactly how he is going to die.
Yes.
That's intense. Welcome back, I forgive you. Feed my sheep. Oh, and by the way, you're going to die a horrific, painful death on a cross. Why tell him that right then?
It sounds incredibly harsh to us. But for Peter, it might have actually been a strange sort of comfort.
How so?
Think about it. He failed to die for Jesus the first time. He ran away. He failed the ultimate test. Now Jesus is giving him an ironclad promise. You will make it this time. You will follow me all the way to the end. You won't run away. You won't deny me again.
It's a promise of future faithfulness. You will graduate.
Yes. And notice the contrast in the imagery Jesus uses. When you were young, you dressed yourself. That represents self-will. That's Peter girding himself up to heroically swim to shore.
And another will dress you.
That's surrender. Mature discipleship is moving from self-will and bravado to total, utter surrender to God's plan. It's losing control of your life to gain Christ.
And then comes the ultimate command. Follow me.
The command that started it all. It implies personal allegiance. It's not just believe my teachings. It's walk exactly where I walk, even if that path leads straight to a cross. It echoes the very first thing Jesus ever said to Peter on the beach years earlier. The call hasn't changed.
So Peter hears this. He knows he's going to be crucified eventually. And immediately, and I love this because it is just so profoundly human, he turns around, he sees John walking behind them, and he points and asks, Lord, what about this man?
The comparison trap. It is the instant killer of joy and focus.
It really is. Peter basically asks, okay, I get the cross, fine, but what does he get? Does he get a cross too? Or does he get a beachfront villa in Ephesus and a lucrative book deal?
Yeah.
This is fair.
It's sibling rivalry at its finest.
And Jesus shuts it down.
Hard.
He says, if it is my will that he remain until I come, what is that to you? You follow me.
What is that to you? That is essentially the first century divine version of mind your own business.
It really is.
Jesus is teaching a massive lesson here for all of us. God's plan for one person, which for Peter was martyrdom, suffering, a shorter life, and ascension. His plan for another, which for John was a long life, being a witness, writing scripture, dying of old age, they're completely different. But they're equally sovereign.
We cannot look at someone else's plate and complain about our own portion.
We must mind our own walk. Peter's lane is Peter's lane. John's lane is John's lane. Comparison distracts us from our own specific calling.
And interestingly, this very moment, this little exchange, actually spawned a rumor in the early church.
It did. The text explicitly tells us that a rumor spread among the brothers that John wouldn't die, that he would literally live until the second coming of Christ.
Because they completely misunderstood Jesus' hypothetical statement.
Right. Jesus said, if it is my will. He didn't say he will remain. John actually has to use precious parchment space to correct this rumor in the text itself.
It's a great little lesson in reading scripture carefully.
Absolutely. It teaches us not to build huge theologies on rumors or speculation. We need to adhere to the exact word of God, not the traditions of men or the grapevine of the church foyer.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, we really have to pull back and look at the big picture. Why does this specific chapter matter so much to us, sitting here in our modern lives? We aren't fishermen in Galilee. We aren't first-century apostles.
I think there are a few profound takeaways from the source material. First, it cures us of what we might call functional deism.
Functional deism. Break that down for us.
It's the idea that many believers live as if God is distant. We believe he did the big miracles back then, creation, the resurrection, parting the Red Sea, but now we're basically on our own for the daily grind.
For flying solo.
Right. But this chapter shows Jesus right in the middle of the 9 to 5. He's standing by the fishing boat, he's making breakfast. He is intensely interested in the mundane details of our work, our daily failures, and our physical hunger. He is deeply present in the ordinary.
That is incredibly reassuring. He's not just the God of the Sunday morning service. He's the God of the Monday morning commute.
Exactly. Second, there's a huge encouragement regarding the end times and the final harvest.
Going back to the net.
Yes. That untorn net and the dawn breaking after the long night, they point directly to the final eschatological harvest.
Yeah.
We are living in the night of toil right now, in a sense. The world is dark. The work is hard.
But the dawn is coming.
The dawn is coming, and the net will hold. The church will survive until the end.
And for the individual listener, the person tuning in right now who feels like they've just messed up too big.
The central message is clear. Failure is not final. Peter is the ultimate proof of that. The Lord restores damaged goods and turns them into pillars of the church.
If you have denied him, if you have run away.
The charcoal fire is still waiting. Not for judgment, but for breakfast. He wants to restore you and give you a job to do.
That brings us to the very end of the Gospel of John. And you mentioned in your notes earlier that it essentially ends with an ellipsis.
Metaphorically, yes. The very last verse says that if everything Jesus did were written down, the whole world couldn't contain the books.
It's an open ending.
It is. The net is still being cast out today. The table is still set on the shore. The story continues with us. We are, in a very real sense, writing chapter 22 with our own lives.
That is a very provocative thought to end on. We are actively part of the ongoing story.
We are, and the question Jesus asks Peter is the exact same question. He asks us today, do you love me? And the command remains the exact same. Follow me.
Well, let's leave it right there. That is a whole lot to cheer on. I want to encourage you again as you go about your week, adhere to the Word of God, not the traditions of men. And take that Follow Me challenge personally. Let it change how you live today.
Absolutely.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive. We'll see you next time.